Tonight, Israeli protesters demand the release of hostages as Benjamin Netanyahu rejects the latest ceasefire proposal. Also, millions to be spent getting SA police off admin tasks and back on the beat. The federal government confirms it's using drones to track some former immigration detainees. And a vital airdrop to the bottom of the world. Good evening, Richard Davies with ABC News. Israel's Prime Minister has labelled a proposal to bring about a total ceasefire in Gaza a non-starter. Less than 24 hours after US President Joe Biden unveiled the plan, which he says was drawn up by Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu appears to have rubbished it. It's only added to the anger within Israel, with tens of thousands taking to the streets calling for the hostages to be brought home.
Fire and fury spilling over on the streets of Tel Aviv. Organisers say 120,000 people turned out in the largest day of protest since the October 7 attacks. The demands from the masses here are simple. They want a deal to bring the hostages home, but they say their Prime Minister won't do it.
Yesterday, Biden gave us, the families, a little bit of hope that was missing for us a lot of days.
That hope was a three-stage proposal that could end the war, presented by US President Joe Biden. He says it was drawn up by Israel, with Western leaders quick to offer their backing.
One of the best things about the potential of this deal is that we'd not only be able to get the hostages out, but we'd be able to flood Gaza with aid.
But less than 24 hours after Biden unveiled the plan, a statement from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu labelled the proposal a non-starter without the complete destruction of Hamas, saying Israel's conditions for ending the war have not changed.
It's unclear to what extent Benjamin Netanyahu was aware of or even involved in the US plan, and whether Joe Biden is trying to strong-arm Israel into ending the war before the US elections. Hamas says it's willing to negotiate, but the biggest disagreement remains the complete withdrawal of Israeli troops. And Netanyahu's far-right coalition partners have threatened to quit and bring down the government should this deal go ahead, further narrowing the likelihood of a truce.
In Rafah, where more than 1 million Palestinians had previously fled, Israel's invasion continues to deepen. Fresh strikes killed dozens of civilians last week, with the toll and suffering here growing by the day. Alison Horn, ABC News, Jerusalem.
The federal government says it is using drones to track where former immigration detainees are living. There's been confusion after the immigration minister first revealed their use as part of a monitoring program that also includes electronic bracelets.
After a week-long immigration migraine, the federal government is clarifying how it's using drones to track former immigration detainees released after the High Court last year ruled indefinite immigration detention was unlawful.
More in the sense of monitoring the accommodation that people are living in and, for example, ensuring that it's not too close to schools or other areas that they're not supposed to be living close to.
You could use Google Maps to find out whether someone's house is too close to a school. Are drones seriously being used for this?
That's my understanding, David, is to monitor the location and the accommodation of these offenders.
Facing questions about how closely the former detainees are being watched, given a man allegedly involved in violently attacking a Perth couple wasn't wearing an ankle monitor, the under-pressure immigration minister this week insisted the group is closely monitored.
Things like using drones to keep track of these people.
But a day later, federal police, part of a joint operation set up to manage the former detainees, said,
in terms of compliance and monitoring, that's a rule for ABF, but I've got no knowledge of drones being used.
What on earth is going on here, and why won't Andrew Giles be upfront about whether or not he just made this up or he accidentally revealed a secret drone program?
The Home Affairs Department says it may use aerial imagery from a variety of sources for operational planning purposes, like to confirm the location of a visa holder's accommodation. As for whether criminals who are foreign nationals should be deported, even if they've spent the majority of their life in Australia, the government says a new direction will make it crystal clear to officials that community safety should be their top priority. Meanwhile, the government has cancelled around 20 visas that were reinstated upon appeal under the existing direction. Evelyn Manfield, ABC News, Canberra.
The state government will spend nearly $37 million on measures to free up police officers and staff from admin duties to get more police back on the beat. It comes as the opposition demands the government do more to curb crime in South Australia.
Jamie Benny's pregnant fiancée was upstairs when their house was broken into last month and their car stolen.
And my partner feels unsafe. You know, she doesn't want to live there anymore, so we will be looking to move on.
He's one of the victims of crime in SA, which Liberal leader David Spears says could have been deterred by more police officers on the streets.
The fact of the matter is we need more police officers because we've got more crime. We need to keep people in South Australia safe and we need to deal with criminals in this state.
Today, the state government announced a $19 million digital police station where people can do things like vehicle collision reports and national police certificate requests online. $9 million will also be spent over 4 years to train civilians in administrative tasks, and there's $8.5 million to bring forward a telephone resolution desk by a year. All up, the measures will help free up more than 100 police officers and staff for operational duties.
Now we're looking more deeply at the types of activities that police are performing to release police officers to the front line.
While the opposition supported the move, it says more needs to be done for recruitment.
I think it would be far better to see more of that money go towards incentives to ensure that our police officers are attracted to the force and are retained within the force, something that's just not happening at the moment.
The police union says while it welcomes the government's investment, it's echoed calls for a greater focus on retention initiatives. And it says it's negotiating with the government on a new bargaining agreement aimed at keeping officers in the force. Sophie Holder, ABC News.
30 new speed cameras will be installed across SA over the next 4 years as part of an $80 million road safety package in the state budget. Speed limits near some schools on major roads will also be reduced to 40 kilometres per hour during drop-off and pick-up times. The changes don't replace existing 25 kilometre per hour school zones on local streets. $35 million will also be spent on road upgrades, including resurfacing and replacing safety barriers. 38 people have died on SA's roads so far this year. 117 lives were lost last year, the worst result since 2010.
This is not about, trying to raise revenue. This is absolutely about trying to send a clear message to motorists that they need to slow down and they need to pay attention when they're behind the wheel.
It's now been more than 24 hours since an explosion destroyed a home in Sydney's west, and rescue workers have yet to find a woman they believe is buried in the rubble. While the cause of the explosion is still unknown, authorities are investigating reports of a gas smell weeks before the incident.
Working through the night, rescuers struggle with huge slabs of heavy concrete, searching the rubble for a daughter believed to be visiting her mom at the time of the blast. The operation at this point is still a rescue mission, not a recovery one.
The mother is in my garage waiting for, she's been there since it happened yesterday and all last night and everything. And, she's sitting there, she's so upset.
Search dogs and monitoring equipment have been brought in to help, with every tool available being used in the painstaking search. But it is largely by hand, brick by brick, plank by plank.
Those efforts will continue, and they will continue until we locate a person or until we can substantively say that there is no person within the area that is being searched.
Several people have told the ABC that they'd smelt gas in the area in the lead-up to the explosion.
My next-door neighbour, he called the gas company, and the gas company said, no, there was no leak or anything, but we could smell gas for the last 2 weeks.
We are extremely concerned that there are reports of residents in the local community there smelling gas for some time. The Housing Minister is investigating that promptly, urgently.
The company Gemina that supplies gas to homes in this street says that their teams are investigating this incident, but that the cause remains unknown. More than 24 hours on from the explosion, rescuers face a second night under floodlights, searching for any evidence of the missing woman. Nabil Al-Nashar, ABC News, Sydney.
Almost 10 days since a landslide swallowed homes in Papua New Guinea's highlands, villagers are still digging through piles of rubble searching for the bodies of their loved ones. The final death toll still isn't clear, and there are fears the search could trigger a fresh landslide, making the recovery even harder. Our correspondent Marian Farr is in Mulitaka, the area hardest hit.
Still in mourning, 9 days after disaster struck. But before the disaster, a warning.
We came out of our houses and were calling others to wake up. Most people were still asleep.
I'm coming with some. Survivors in Mulitaka have told the ABC they remember hearing two large cracks around 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. Only an hour later, the mountain collapsed.
For those of us who heard the sound, we were able to escape, but the ones who didn't hear were buried in their sleep.
Almost a week and a half on, only a handful of bodies have been recovered, but there are fears hundreds could still be buried. Wende Wamblip Jr. survived, but lost 5 relatives, including his young daughter.
4 bodies were recovered, but my child remains buried. I am exhausted and I'm resting today. Tomorrow I will continue to dig with a crowbar and spade.
Digging for bodies using sticks and shovels seems like an impossible task amid the masses of rock and rubble, but people are still determined to find their loved ones. Australia is shipping in aid and essential supplies. Officials are warning that sending in excavators could trigger another landslide. A team of Australian disaster response experts are using drones to map the site to determine how large that risk is.
Once the authorities here have that information, they'll be able to make some firm decisions about how they manage the site.
While villagers who have lost everything face a long and painful road ahead.
My concern is finding new land where I can resettle my family. When you have land, you can build a home.
Right now, that home and so much else lies buried. Marian Farr, ABC News, Mulitaka.
Mexico is poised to elect its first female president in what's expected to be the country's largest election in history. The nation already has relatively high levels of female representation in politics, but it also has a huge problem of violence against women. So will having a woman in charge make a difference? North America correspondent Barbara Miller reports from Mexico City.
In the heart of Mexico's capital, the names of those fighting for justice. Among them, Araceli Osorio, her daughter Leslie, one of Mexico's many femicide victims. Araceli was initially told Leslie had died by suicide. CCTV footage would later help prove her boyfriend killed her.
There are several moments when he attacks her while they are at the university campus. He was there the whole time.
An estimated 10 women are murdered every day in Mexico. Activists say many of the deaths are femicides, the killing of a girl or woman because of her gender. Amid rising violence, Mexicans are going to the polls and will likely for the first time elect a female president. Claudia Sheinbaum from the party of current President López Obrador is the clear frontrunner, ahead of Xochitl Gálvez.
You might think with 2 leading female candidates that violence against women would have been a key campaign issue, but that hasn't been the case here. Crime, the economy and social welfare have been the main topics.
This shows a complete lack of understanding for our country's problems and puts women at risk.
Maria Elena Rios survived a 2019 acid attack allegedly organised by her ex-partner. The musician has championed a new law categorising acid attacks as attempted femicide.
It's a giant step what's about to happen in Mexico, and we can't be let down.
A plea echoing across Mexico for a future so many women won't live to see. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Mexico City.
And if this story has raised any issues for you or someone you know, call 1-800-RESPECT. People who share deepfake pornography online will face years behind bars as part of legislation being introduced into federal parliament this week. The government says pornographic images generated by artificial intelligence overwhelmingly affect women, and this is part of broader efforts to address men's violence against women. Under the new legislation, sharing non-consensual sexually explicit deepfake material will carry a penalty of 6 years in jail. Someone who creates the deepfake without consent will face a higher penalty of 7 years in prison. Australia's trade tensions with China are easing after Beijing's decision to lift a ban on beef exports. But a new trade war could be brewing with Washington over electric cars, which could leave Australia caught in the middle. Alan Kohler explains.
Australia's relationship with China these days is a bit like standing under an elephant walking a tightrope. You just hope they get there and don't fall off. For more than a decade, our exports have relied on China's booming property sector, supplying the iron ore and coal for the steel girders inside the walls of millions of apartments. But now that business is in a state of collapse. The government has just announced a series of measures to try to stabilise the property sector, but even if they work, which is far from certain, it's a long way back. To keep its economy growing in the absence of a property boom, China has been frantically investing in manufacturing. And on the principle of never doing things by halves, has suddenly become the world's biggest exporter of cars. And it now accounts for more than half of the world's electric vehicle sales. But while China is desperate to replace its property bust with car exports, the rest of the world is having trouble dealing with it. And they're not that pleased with what it's doing to their own car industries. America is putting a 100% tariff on electric vehicles, and Europe is expected to do something similar. In fact, trade actions against China have doubled in a year by countries around the world. So Australia is in a bit of a quandary. We really want China to win this trade war, but we really don't want to take sides against Europe and Uncle Sam.
For millions of Australians, chronic pain can cause challenges in their everyday lives, and yet many people wouldn't realise they were struggling. An Adelaide hospital has teamed up with young people experiencing chronic pain to help raise awareness about the condition.
For the last few years, Adelaide teenager Kate Smith has been battling constant pain, beginning after a panic attack caused a headache, which never really went away.
We got brain scans and everything. There was a time where I thought, do I have brain tumours? Am I going to die? What's going on? I had no idea what chronic pain was until my doctor said, you've got chronic pain.
Her headaches became so debilitating, she worried she might have to drop out of school.
It was just so impossible to get to school and to try and complete assignments and learn content when I was so unfamiliar with this pain and I had no idea what was going on.
3 years on, and Kate has learned to live with her chronic pain. Now, with the help of the Women's and Children's Hospital, she's using her experience to help others. The 17-year-old shared her story in a video campaign to help other young people manage their pain and continue their schooling.
The more we can improve those conversations so that we can put practical strategies in place to help children move, to help children have find supports and to get better. That's what we need to do.
It's estimated 1 in 5 Australians are affected by chronic pain. For young people, this can be particularly disruptive, with research revealing South Australian students with the condition are missing out on more than half of their schooling. Kate's doctors believe there's still a chance her headaches may disappear as she gets older. For her family, their focus is on helping others on their chronic pain journey.
You look at her, you don't know she's got chronic pain. But if she had a really bad day, you wouldn't see her because she's in her bedroom having a sleep. So it's invisible and therefore we need to raise awareness.
Powering through adversity to raise awareness for an often invisible condition. Will Hunter, ABC News, Adelaide.
Fremantle has produced its best performance of the season, stunning premiership hopefuls Melbourne by 92 points in Alice Springs. On the Gold Coast, the Suns ended Essendon's unbeaten run to move into the top 8, while the Dockers could do no wrong to head to the AFL bye in red-hot form.
Billed as a battle of the rocks, it was Max Gawn who took early bragging rights for Melbourne.
It sneaks in.
It looked too easy for the Demons as they kicked the opening 2 goals. But just as the Dockers looked out of sort, things clicked, Fremantle kicking the next 6.
And that's a great strike.
Jai Amos has been under the microscope for indifferent form in recent weeks. He looked a different player in Alice Springs, as Fremantle produced its best first half in 5 years.
Oh, he is shaped beautifully.
To make matters worse for a shell-shocked Melbourne, Lachie Hunter was subbed out with a calf injury at the main break. The procession continued, Fremantle booting 7 goals to 2 to lead by 81 points at the final change.
His first goal of the season is something special.
The Dockers didn't relent in the final term, kicking their biggest ever score under Justin Longmuir as they climbed back into the top 8. That result presented Gold Coast with a chance to join the Dockers in the 8, but they would need to get past a red-hot Essendon.
Right, back home, his old home ground.
Ben Long celebrated his 100th match with the Suns' opening goal.
And he strikes that brilliantly.
The home side kicking 4 in a row to hit the front.
King, he shook it off.
Ben King's pursuit of the Coleman medal continued, booting his 3rd goal early in the second half as the Suns opened up a 20-point lead. The Bombers didn't take their chances.
Can you believe that?
Essendon eventually converted as the margin was reduced to 5 points.
Doesn't matter how, it just matters how many.
But the Suns always had an answer as they remained unbeaten at home in 2024. Tom Wildey, ABC News.
The Queensland Firebirds have climbed off the bottom of the Super Netball ladder by defeating reigning premiers the Adelaide Thunderbirds. The Firebirds brought the heat early, Donnell Wallam shooting flawlessly for the first half to give her team the lead. A short burst from the third-placed Thunderbirds gave them hope, but the Firebirds steadied and took their 2nd win of the year by 10 goals. It was a tighter contest between the Melbourne Mavericks and the New South Wales Swifts. Both teams bringing the tempo, the home team edging ahead thanks to Shimona Jock before Helen Houseby's super shots got the Swifts back in it. But intercepts and relentless pressure helped give the Mavericks a 6-goal win. In tennis, Australia's Alex de Minaur has set up a French Open showdown with Russia's Daniil Medvedev after he advanced to the 4th round at Roland Garros for the first time. The world number 11 fought back from a set down to beat Germany's Jan-Lennard Struff in 4 sets.
Vying to be the first Australian man to reach the final 16 since Leighton Hewitt, Alex de Minaur was on the back foot early against his big-hitting opponent.
What a start from Struff.
Jan-Lennard Struff took the opening set, but the fleet-footed demon hit back.
Surely not.
Oh, it's incredible what he gets back.
Rain set in on another grey Paris morning, forcing play to stop. When the contest resumed almost 5 hours later, de Minaur went to another level. De Minaur prevailed in 4 sets. And there was one fan in particular he wanted to thank for sticking by him in the wet and cold.
Yeah, that kid, after every single point, was yelling, was getting me up, getting me going. Every time I changed ends, I was locking eyes with him, and it was an extremely special moment.
The 25-year-old will next face Russian star Daniil Medvedev. De Minaur is the last Australian left in the singles draw after a 3rd straight 5-set match proved one too many for Thanasi Kokkinakis. An exhausted Kokkinakis was 2 sets down to American Taylor Fritz when he challenged a line call.
If you don't find that mark, I'm going to lose that unit.
His protest worked and he won the next 2 sets. But Fritz recovered to claim the decider and send the South Australian home. Tom Maddox, ABC News.
Australian golfer Minjee Lee has a share of the lead heading into the final round of the US Open at Lancaster Country Club. Lee had a 4-under par 66 in her third round, which included an eagle and 4 birdies. The 28-year-old from Perth is tied at the top of the leaderboard with American Andrea Lee and Thailand's Uchani Michai. The 2022 US Open champion Minjee Lee is aiming to become only the 4th Australian to win more than 2 majors.
You know, it's a lot of people watching and, you know, I'm just going to try and stay in the moment. But, you know, it's always nice to be in the final group. It means you're contending, so, yeah.
The USA has opened up the men's T20 Cricket World Cup with a 7-wicket win over Canada in Dallas. American-born to parents from Barbados, Aaron Jones made an unbeaten 94 off 40 balls, which included 10 sixes. In the ICC's bid to promote the sport to Americans, the US is hosting 16 games in the tournament, with the remainder to be played in the West Indies. The Defence Force has completed a complex airdrop to deliver much-needed supplies to Mawson Station in Antarctica. The mission was launched after expeditioners were left without critical cargo because of faulty cranes on Australia's icebreaker.
High above the Antarctic ice, this is the moment 14 tonnes of essential supplies are released out the back of a C-17 Globemaster.
This mission's a really special one for us. It allows us to test all of our capabilities.
From the open hatch, dozens of pallets slowly fall to the drop zone, where expeditioners are awaiting the special delivery.
I would have to say it's one of the most spectacular things that you can see in Antarctica, is to see some 30 parachutes with cage pallets full of equipment that you're not sure what's coming, a little bit like Christmas, I guess.
The airdrop was required after faulty cranes on the RSV Noina meant half its cargo couldn't be offloaded, leaving staff at Mawson Station without important supplies over winter.
We are sending mechanical and electrical supplies, we're sending food, we are sending personal cargo.
The C-17's journey began thousands of kilometres away in Hobart, where the cargo was loaded up and strapped down. From there, the plane travelled to Western Australia before making its way south on a 10,000 kilometre, 14-hour round trip that required a mid-air refuelling operation.
The vast distance is certainly a challenge. Obviously, conducting mid-air refuelling is a complex task, but our crews are very good at it.
The airdrop was part of Operation Southern Discovery, which provides the Australian Antarctic program with logistical support from the Defence Force.
We work in the most extreme environments. It's critically important that we have lots of layers of approaches.
Ensuring the safety and well-being of Australian expeditioners in the frozen continent. Jono Gibson, ABC News.
On to the weather details now, and tonight's photo is from Lauren Balderstone. It was taken during sunset at Piccadilly Valley, Uradla. In the city today, it reached 16.4 degrees around 1:30 this afternoon after a very chilly 4 degrees overnight. It was much the same across the state after early morning fog and frost cleared from the central and southeastern parts. It reached 18 in Coober Pedy. Cloud over WA with a vigorous cold front dumped heavy rain and caused gusty showers there today. The front's heading our way, bringing wet weather to areas of our state and parts of the interior before a high causes the showers to ease. A low over the southeast will continue to bring strong winds, large waves and rain to Tasmania and eastern parts of Victoria. So rain in Hobart tomorrow with 14 degrees, showers and 20 for Perth, a few spots for the Alice with 17, 32 for Darwin. Back home, showers from the west will move east during the day, reaching central districts late evening. Winds will freshen, bringing cooler conditions, 17 for Ceduna. A few spots for Port Lincoln tomorrow, fine in the other southern major centres, 14 for Maitland, 15 for Renmark and Kingscote. There's a strong wind warning tomorrow for the west coasts and the central coast, and there's a frost warning for the mid-north, Riverland, Murraylands and the southeast districts. A fine day for Adelaide tomorrow, 16 degrees for the city, dropping to 5 overnight. On the waters, winds tending northerly to 15 knots with seas below 1 metre. The sun will rise around 7:15 and set just under 10 hours later. Staying fine for the week ahead. 18 degrees on Wednesday and Thursday, cloudy on Saturday with 17, then 19 degrees for this time next week. And that is the news this Sunday. Thanks for your company. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.